Ronnie Coleman, a name that commands silence and respect. To those who have ever stepped foot in a gym, it's not just a name. It's a standard, an impossible benchmark, a living reminder that humans can become something more than flesh and bone when will collides with iron. He wasn't simply a bodybuilder. He was the embodiment of raw, unfiltered effort, a man who took the ordinary laws of the human body and shattered them into dust. For years, he seemed immortal, unstoppable, a force of nature wrapped in muscle. But behind every thunderous, "yeah, buddy," was a lifetime of sacrifice, agony, and choices that would reshape him forever. This is the story of a legend who paid the ultimate price for greatness and smiled through every second of it. Ronnie Dean Coleman was born on May 13, 1964, in Monroe, Louisiana, a small town with big struggles and bigger hearts. He was raised by a single mother who worked tirelessly, holding multiple jobs to provide for her family. They didn't have much, no luxuries, no safety net, no shortcuts. But what they lacked in comfort, they made up for in grit. From the very beginning, Ronnie understood what hard work meant because survival demanded it. He saw his mother come home exhausted, her hands worn and her body aching, yet her spirit unbroken. She taught him something that would echo through every rep, every set, every competition of his life. Discipline is love, and pain is part of progress. As a boy, Ronnie wasn't obsessed with fame or money. He didn't dream of spotlights, magazine covers, or championship trophies. He wanted something simpler, something real, security, a steady job, a better life for his family, a future built with his own hands. That was his dream. He didn't know yet that destiny had far bigger, far more painful plans. At Grambling State University, Ronnie studied accounting and played football under the legendary coach Eddie Robinson, a man who built champions through discipline and relentless work. It was there, under the searing Louisiana heat, running drills until his lungs burned and his legs gave out, that his character sharpened like steel against stone. On the field, he was powerful, relentless, and dependable. Not the loudest, not the flashiest, but always the hardest working. In the weight room, his natural strength stood out immediately. Teammates recalled him lifting numbers that made others stop mid-conversation and stare in disbelief. But it wasn't raw talent that defined him. It was work ethic. Ronnie didn't just lift weights. He studied them. Every session was a lesson in patience, repetition, and respect for the grind. When college ended, he didn't walk into glory. He walked into reality. In 1989, Ronnie moved to Arlington, Texas, where he joined the police force. The job was demanding, steady, and required discipline, exactly what he valued. As Officer Coleman, he was calm, courteous, and dependable. To his fellow officers, he was the kind of man who never complained, never cut corners, never made excuses. He worked long shifts, dealt with difficult situations, and when his day ended, when most people would collapse into bed, he went straight to the gym. And it was in that gym, a humble place filled with rusted iron, sweat-stained benches, and pure determination, where everything changed. Ronnie's co-worker, Brian Dobson, also happened to be a gym owner and competitive bodybuilder. He saw something special in Ronnie, something raw, unpolished, and explosive. One day, he made an offer, a free lifetime membership to his gym, Metroflex, on one condition. Ronnie had to compete in a bodybuilding show. Just one show. That was it. It was an offer that would alter the course of history. Metroflex Gym was nothing like the polished fitness centers most people know today. There was no air conditioning, no fancy machines, no comfort whatsoever. The Texas heat made the air feel thick and heavy, like breathing through wet cotton. The floor was concrete, the weights were old and chipped, and the atmosphere was electric with the energy of people who didn't fear suffering. It was a temple for those who understood that growth only comes through pain. Ronnie thrived there. He trained with a quiet, burning intensity, sweating through 2, sometimes 3 brutal workouts a day, surrounded by the sound of clanging metal, heavy breathing, and the screams of men pushing past their limits. He entered his first competition, the 1990 Mr. Texas, and won. It was supposed to be a small local show, nothing more than a test. Instead, it became the first step in an odyssey. That victory gave him a taste of something he didn't expect: purpose, a reason to exist beyond survival. And once Ronnie found purpose, there was no going back. For the next few years, he climbed the amateur ranks, inch by painful inch. He turned professional in 1991, earning his IFBB pro card by winning the World Amateur Championships. But the road ahead was brutal and unforgiving. For years, he placed low at professional shows. He watched as stars like Flex Wheeler, Kevin Levrone, and Shawn Ray dominated the sport with their symmetry, charisma, and political savvy. Ronnie wasn't considered a threat. Judges overlooked him. Fans didn't know his name. Magazines didn't feature him. But Ronnie didn't see himself as a failure. He saw himself as a work in progress. While others partied, took vacations, or relaxed after competitions, Ronnie was in the gym. He worked full-time as a police officer, pulling shifts, chasing suspects, filling out paperwork, while training twice a day and eating up to 8 carefully measured meals daily. Chicken, rice, potatoes, eggs, and more chicken. No cheat meals, no shortcuts, no excuses. He didn't have sponsors or fancy supplements. He had drive. His coworkers used to joke that he lived 2 completely different lives. Officer Coleman by day, Iron Warrior by night. They weren't wrong. Most people couldn't handle one. Ronnie mastered both. Then came 1998, the year the world changed. That September, at the Mr. Olympia competition in Las Vegas, Ronnie Coleman stepped on stage and made time stop. The crowd had seen big men before. They'd seen mass monsters, genetic freaks, and chemical experiments, but no one like him. His size, shape, density, and conditioning were beyond comprehension. He was nearly 300 pounds of shredded perfection, veins crawling across slabs of muscle that looked carved from granite by a vengeful god. When he hit his rear lat spread, the stage lights disappeared behind him. The audience gasped audibly. The judges stared in stunned silence. His rivals knew, in that instant, that the game had changed forever. When his name was called as the winner, Ronnie collapsed onto the stage in disbelief. Tears poured down his face. The man who once handed out parking tickets in Arlington, Texas, had just become the best bodybuilder on planet Earth. But that first win was just the beginning. He defended his title 7 more times, ruling the sport with absolute dominance from 1998 to 2005. Each year, impossibly, he returned bigger, harder, more defined, defying logic, genetics, science, and pain itself. He didn't just win, he obliterated the competition. His workouts became the stuff of legend. 800-pound squats for reps, 800-pound deadlifts pulled like they weighed nothing, 600-pound bench presses, not for show, not for cameras, but because that's what progress demanded. The numbers were monstrous. His strength was mythic, and through it all, he roared his now immortal words, "Yeah, buddy, lightweight, baby, ain't nothing but a peanut." To casual fans, they were funny catchphrases. To serious lifters, they were gospel, battle cries, prayers before combat. But beneath the humor and infectious charisma was a man pushing himself far beyond the limits of human endurance. Ronnie trained until his body screamed for mercy, and then trained some more. The iron was his religion, pain his sermon, and progress his only god. He wasn't competing against other men anymore. He was competing against the idea of impossible itself. But impossible has a price, and in time the debt came due. Ronnie's body began to break. His spine, once the pillar of his inhuman strength, started to crumble from the endless strain of 800-pound lifts repeated thousands of times. His hips and knees bore the punishment of decades of systematic abuse. He suffered herniated discs, torn muscles, pinched nerves, and degenerative damage that would have crippled most men years earlier. Each lift took a piece of him he could never get back. Each rep was a transaction. Glory now, agony later. Doctors warned him repeatedly. They begged him to stop. They showed him x-rays and MRIs, pointing to fractures and compressions that made them wince. They said his body couldn't take any more. But Ronnie only knew one direction, forward. He once said, "The day I stop lifting heavy is the day I die." And in a way, he meant it literally. To him, stopping was worse than dying. Without iron, without the grind, without the pursuit, who was he? The surgeries came next. At first, 1, then another, then 10 more. Spinal fusions, hip replacements, bone grafts, emergency procedures, operations that would have broken most men's spirits completely. Metal rods and screws now hold his back together like scaffolding on a crumbling building. His body, once an unstoppable machine that defied nature, became a patchwork of scars, titanium, and sheer willpower. The man who once squatted half a ton now struggled to walk unassisted. The man who moved 800 pounds like it was air now needed help standing up. Yet, even as his mobility faded, his smile didn't. He laughed, he joked, he told interviewers again and again that he'd do it all again. And he meant it. When asked if he regretted anything, the surgeries, the pain, the wheelchair, the cane, he said without hesitation, "Not one thing. I got to live my dream." That's who Ronnie Coleman is. the kind of man who would rather live a short life chasing greatness than a long one avoiding pain. But behind the laughter was a truth the bodybuilding world rarely acknowledges. The sport he helped build, the industry he elevated, didn't make him rich. Prize money was modest. Even winning Mr. Olympia paid only a fraction of what people assumed. Sponsorships were limited and unreliable. For all his fame, all his influence, Ronnie never earned the fortune people believed he did. Most of his winnings went straight into recovery, surgeries, physical therapy, and endless medical bills. He gave everything to the sport, and in return, the sport took everything but his spirit. Even now, at 61 years old, he lives in constant pain. Simple movements, standing up from a chair, taking steps, climbing stairs, feel like battles against his own skeleton. Yet through it all, he keeps training. He wakes up, heads to his home gym, and lifts what he can. Not to be the biggest anymore, not to win anything, but to feel alive. The sound of iron clanging, the rhythm of exertion, the familiar burn in his muscles, it still makes him feel whole. He often films himself training, sharing words of encouragement with his millions of fans across social media. The smile hasn't faded, the spirit hasn't dulled. His body may have fallen, but his will remains untouchable. "I'm just happy to still be doing what I love," he says, and he means it. Because for Ronnie Coleman, lifting isn't what he does, it's who he is. It's the language he speaks, the prayer he recites, the proof he still exists. And that's what makes his story so haunting and so inspiring. He reached the absolute peak of human achievement. He redefined what was possible in bodybuilding, and in doing so, he sacrificed everything. The same iron that built him also broke him, but he never blamed it. He never cursed it. He respected it. He honored it, because the iron gave him purpose when he had none, identity when he felt invisible, and immortality when his body was mortal. That's the paradox of greatness. The stronger you become, the more fragile you truly are. The higher you climb, the harder the fall. But Ronnie Coleman never saw tragedy. He saw triumph. His legacy isn't just his 8 Sandow trophies or his impossible physique. It's his mindset, the relentless pursuit of excellence, no matter the cost, the refusal to quit, the willingness to pay any price for glory. Every gym in the world still echoes with his spirit. His voice lives on through generations of lifters who shout, "Yeah, buddy," before attempting a heavy squat. His story is carved into the DNA of bodybuilding and beyond. Athletes, soldiers, entrepreneurs, students, anyone who's ever chased something that seemed impossible sees a piece of themselves in Ronnie Coleman, because he proved that effort, not talent, defines destiny. Heart, not genetics, determines greatness. He once said, "Everybody wants to be a bodybuilder, but nobody wants to lift no heavy-ass weight." It was funny when he said it, but it was also truth. Everyone wants success, recognition, and glory, but few are willing to suffer for it. Ronnie did. He lifted every heavy weight life threw at him, inside and outside the gym. He carried the burden of his mother's struggles, his own insecurities, financial stress, physical agony, and the crushing pressure of staying on top. And he never put it down. Ronnie Coleman's rise was glorious, his fall was heartbreaking, and his story unforgettable. Because Ronnie didn't just become a legend, he became a mirror, reflecting both the beauty and the brutality of human ambition. He showed us that greatness isn't measured in trophies, muscles, or magazine covers, but in the willingness to give everything for what you love. His body may be broken, steel rods holding together what dedication tore apart, but his legacy is eternal. He remains to this day the strongest man to ever step on a bodybuilding stage, and perhaps the strongest spirit the sport has ever known. Ask him if it was worth it, and he'll still smile that infectious smile. "Every second of it," he'll say. And in that smile lies the whole story. The laughter through pain, the courage through loss, the unbreakable heart of a man who refused to stop, who couldn't stop, who wouldn't stop. Ronnie Coleman lived a life defined by iron. He forged a legend that will never rust. Because some men chase history, and some, like Ronnie Coleman, become it.